What's the good word, Josh? Your boy DKB here. So I don't envy Joe Douglas's offseason. He has quite a few tasks ahead of him. He has to figure out how to overhaul this offense. On the defense, it's not as stressful, but you got to figure out if you think you could clearly upgrade over a guy like Jordan Whitehead at safety. You have the big question mark here in Bryce Huff, right? I think naturally there were three different paths, or maybe essentially four that could happen with Bryce Huff, right? You had the fact that we may work out a long-term extension with him. The second option would be that we just end up franchise tagging him. The third option would be a tag and trade. And then the fourth option would be that we ultimately just end up letting him walk, and we'd be hoping to get a compensatory pick back. Now, there was some recent press conferences and stuff like that ended up coming out, not only from Bryce Huff, but Rich Cimini kind of broke down this situation even further for why it's highly unlikely that we see Joe Douglas apply the franchise tag to Bryce Huff. And this isn't for lack of performance, right? You're talking about the 2023 season sack leader for the New York Jets. The last 2 years of him having significant enough snaps, being the most efficient pass rusher in the NFL, and that's not an understatement. He's literally beating out the guys like Myles Garrett, and Micah Parsons, the Nick Bosas of the world that we're out here seeing. So it is an interesting situation to see how we'll play this. Now, from Bryce Huff's perspective, he did kind of give us some insight into his offseason plans, which is where a lot of the moans and groans kind of came from. He said, "I'm not giving any discount. I work too hard for myself and family and the people around me to maximize my earnings. I'm definitely open to every scenario and every team. I just want to do what's best for me at the end of the day." So, from our side, yeah, it sucks. We didn't get an endorsement or, an overwhelming sense of loyalty or, to this New York Jets team. But I don't necessarily, subscribe to that, right? Yeah, we plucked an undrafted free agent guy and developed him into a top-tier pass rusher, but that's, what your job is. Joe Douglas' job is to try to find a way to retain guys like this. But I think the bad taste would be if we lose him for nothing, right? The compensatory pick formula, we have the general understanding of how it works, but it's not an exact science. And so I mentioned this before, not only with the franchise tag, but with the comp picks, there is a realistic scenario where we lose Bryce Huff for nothing, right? Think about the fact that we need to go out there and try to find 3 or 4, starters on the offensive line. It's depth pieces at the offensive line as well. You want to try to find you a solid number 2 wide receiver in free agency. If you don't go the draft route, you got to find yourself a quality backup quarterback. Those prices are on the rise, right? Again, trying to supplement the safety position, trying to figure out what pieces you're going to add. Keep in mind, we have a quiet need at defensive tackle still, and then you're going to need to replace guys like Carl Lawson and a Bryce Huff if they leave. So definitely a lot that needs to be done to this roster, and I can easily see a situation where we end up having more incoming free agents than we had guys going out, getting themselves somewhat lucrative contracts, and that's essentially what the comp, formula is about. If I have 10 guys that are leaving, let's say 5 of them go out and sign themselves, above average deals, and I only bring in 2 free agents and give them above average deals. I have 3 guys left over that went out. Cool. I should be expecting some picks back. But if it's the other way, I'm bringing in 10 guys. I didn't really have anybody leave, or the people that left didn't really get any huge contracts, or they don't have a significant amount of playing time, which I think is one of the other factors in the formula. Then I'm looking at not receiving anything. And so I can, again, very much see that being the case this offseason. And kudos to Bryce Huff. It's probably not going to be a popular opinion, but, players owe no loyalty to any specific teams, especially in this day and era. We've seen how a lot of these franchises are run. You have, who was it? I think the Panthers owner, throwing drinks on other team fans and all of this nonsense. So, it is what it is. Chase the bag while you can, especially if you are a player that's going out there and doing everything right and doing everything possible. Now, if Joe Douglas can get him, I'll be ecstatic. But again, a lot of it comes down to the contract. Bryce Huff has the most unique situation in the NFL in that he's playing with the Jets. Our snap leader on the defensive line, I believe, was Jermaine Johnson, and I think he just barely passed the 70% mark at 71%. So, we're just not really going to have guys that are out there playing excessive totals unless we find that rare quality player that I think, Robert Saleh mentioned, like a Nick Bosa type guy. Bryce Huff could very much well be that, but I don't think the Jets really want to find out with how, we've seen a couple decent enough games in run coverage with Bryce Huff, but for the most part, he's pretty much been looked at as a poor to terrible run defender. He thinks he could prove otherwise, so it is what it is. But I can definitely see teams out there that are willing to pay the big bag just to see him go out there and be able to almost guarantee 10 sacks a season with what he's been doing at a 50% clip. So who knows? Who knows how this will ultimately pan out? But from Rich Cimini's perspective in terms of what it comes from the franchise tag, he mentioned, let me clear this all up to the Jets fans out there who think the Jets are going to tag Bryce Huff. I would be very surprised if that happens because the projected franchise tag for a defensive end is going to be $23 million. Now, I think a couple of weeks ago, don't remember what video I dropped, but I think our general area of cap space was about $7 million at that point in time, right? Still got to set money aside for the draft class, still have to worry about, your free agency pool, all that kind of stuff. And then we had the rumors coming out about expecting some, maybe surprise cuts or releases. So there's a lot of situations where we can see an increase of cap space for us for sure. But do you want to commit that much, especially if you can't work out a long-term deal to Bryce Huff? And if a team doesn't feel like they're willing to go out there and trade a premium pick for him. Cimini went on to say, as I said earlier, the Jets have cap restrictions. I don't see them devoting $23 million in cap space for a player who plays about 45 to 50% of the snaps. Now, I will say, going forward with Bryce Huff, whether he does go to a new team or he stays on the Jets, I think you do start seeing him hit that starter level, right? You'll see him between 65 and 70%. If he goes to a different team, you're going to see upwards of 80%. And that's something I would stand on, right? I feel pretty strongly like he's kind of earned that respect around the league, right? He had a small lull towards the end of the season, which may be expected for a guy that hasn't played a premium amount of snaps. But then he finished extremely strong, right? And still did good otherwise in, pressure category. So to finish out, Cimini ended up saying, now the Jets could get back that cap space if they trade him. But ask yourself this, what team out there will want to give up compensation in the form of a draft pick? Let's say a second round pick and an enormous contract to Bryce Huff. So Bryce Huff himself is going to be in an odd situation where he has to pan this out, right? First time he's on the market, he's going to be able to go out there and kind of see, much like the insight Quincy Williams gave us, right? Here's what teams are telling you. Here's what guys they think you're comparable to. Here's the dollar amount that they're, willing to kind of work within for you. And then you also have to imagine, do you feel like you can be that guy on the defense elsewhere that, doesn't play the same style that maybe Robert Saleh does and is willing to let you do some of the things that this New York Jets defense did and has a lot of the pieces on the defensive line that most teams in the NFL isn't going to have? I would say he'll probably have success outside of that, right? But I don't know what could happen. The worst case scenario here, though, that I think we could find ourselves in, though, is for sure losing him for nothing, and then we don't even end up getting a comp pick back on the back end. That's something that Joe Douglas might not be able to continue to live through, right? He's kind of been a 9 lives cat here. The 2023 season, the entire debacle. You have the final Sam Darnold experiment under him. Then you have the Zach Wilson failure to draft. And then you have the situation in this draft where he may be potentially at a crossroads where he has to pick between a top quarterback option, a top tackle option, or one of the best wide receivers, and the best way that he can find out to help this offense right away for the 2024 season. But I don't know. It's going to be a chaotic offseason for us, I'm very sure. But let me know what you guys think. Bryce Huff, what would you do? Are you willing to commit the big bag to him to keep him on the roster? Or would you potentially stress trying to trade him somewhere or risk losing him for nothing? I don't know. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you again. Peace.